Tonight, a new low.
We don't get nothing.
As unemployment reaches a record high. The most jobs lost since the Great Depression.
Now we're getting back to work.
Good morning.
Even as states across the country ease pandemic restrictions.
Plus murder in Georgia. A white father and son charged in the slaying of 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery.
And the stunning reversal.
Who's an innocent man?
With the Justice Department dropping its case against Trump ally Michael Flynn.
And the President and First Lady remember VE Day, ending the war in Europe.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Record job growth shattered after the biggest slash in employment ever. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Bratter. Thanks for joining us. The nation now facing the worst jobs numbers since record-keeping began back in 1948. More than 33 million Americans are out of work because of the pandemic.
And that includes 20 million in the last month alone. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us with more on what this means. Ben?
Well, John and Jenna, essentially all the job growth we've seen in the last decade pretty much vanished in a matter of mere months. And now some economists fear it could take upwards of 10 years to get the economy back on track.
The Labor Department monthly report revealed a 14.7 unemployment rate in April, the worst since the Great Depression. It equates to 20.5 million jobs lost last month alone.
Not having the financial income, and obviously makes things troublesome with student loans and mortgage and all sorts of bills.
President Trump appeared optimistic on Fox and Friends that the economy will bounce back.
Those jobs will all be back, and they'll be back very soon. And next year, we're going to have a phenomenal year. People are ready to go.
The pandemic hit close to home for the commander-in-chief after a personal Oval Office valet tested positive for the coronavirus. And we now know a member of Vice President Mike Pence's team is affected as well.
There is a member of the vice president's team who is positive for coronavirus. We have put in place the guidelines that our experts have put forward to keep this building safe, which means contact tracing, all of the recommended guidelines we have for businesses that have essential workers. We're now putting in place here in the White House.
Now, today, President Trump said that it was Katie who tested positive for the coronavirus. It appears he is talking about Katie Miller. She is the spokesperson for Vice President Mike Pence and also the wife of White House advisor Stephen Miller. Also, President Trump and the Vice President Pence have both tested negative for COVID-19. John, Jenna?
All right, White House correspondent Ben Kennedy, thank you. And joining us now is Mark Hamrick, senior economic analyst at bankrate.com. Mark, it's good to have you. Thank you for being with us today. So 14.7% unemployment, the worst since the Great Depression. Some economists, though, they were predicting as bad as 16%.
Well, this is first of all, it's great to be with you, Jenna. It's very difficult to capture exactly what's happening in the economy, given all the changes we've been seeing recently. But let's remember, just some 24 hours ago, we had new claims for unemployment benefits now running at a total of more than 30 million since this crisis began. I think one of the most important data points to look at here gets to the question that we would love to have answered ASAP. How many of these people will go back to work as soon as possible? And within the report, we are told that some 18 million Americans did say that they expected that their layoff was temporary. Some of those people may be overly optimistic in the sense that some of their jobs may go away in the near term because businesses are essentially not having sales. They're not having revenue that keeps them in business. But the big question mark really is, number one, when do we get the medical solution, the vaccine, that it gives consumers the ability to have confidence they can go back out in public, and then we get some restoration, full restoration of economic activity some months down the road.
So, Mark, along those lines, a little prognosis here. Worst case, best case scenario, how long will it take for us to recover?
Well, I would think, for example, the estimate provided by the International Monetary Fund in the last couple of weeks on a global basis indicates that it may be until 2022 until we get back to the levels of global economic activity that we enjoyed coming into this. There have been many measures taken which are aimed at keeping individuals and businesses solvent. Those are measures by the Federal Reserve as well as by the Congress and approved by the president. But many of those are stopgap measures. They don't continue forever either, meaning, for example, the payroll protection program will end at some point. And in the meantime, there's been a lot of wealth destruction, a lot of economic activity which will not be restored or occur, and that digs us a hole. So I think we may begin to see a rebound in the third quarter, but we'll not get back to where we were for quite some time.
Yeah, Mark, do you think we'll start to see employers starting to lay off people who are working from home?
Sure, unfortunately, because they may be asked to take pay cuts or they may lose their jobs. Just working from home is really a step meant to mitigate the medical risk, but it does keep, obviously, people working and the opportunity for companies to continue capturing their revenue. But in the meantime, there is a great stress on the economy. And companies, some companies are benefiting from the current experience, such as those that are making home deliveries of groceries or are amping up their medical response through R&D. But then there are others, retailers, leisure and hospitality at the top of the list, that essentially have very little sales or no sales at all. And they're not built to do that.
All right. Mark Hamrick with Bankrate.com. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, tonight, emotions are running high across the country after two white men are charged with murder, accused of gunning down a young unarmed black man jogging through their neighborhood.
The case dates back more than 2 months, but disturbing video released just this week seems to have prompted the arrests. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips has more. Eric?
This case had been under investigation by authorities in Glenn County, Georgia for months, but the Georgia Bureau of Investigations inherited it this Tuesday and within 36 hours had filed for 2 arrest warrants with possibly more to come. We're about to show you part of the reason why. And a word of warning, this video is graphic. This viral video is what is sparking outrage across the country. Police say 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery was jogging through a Brunswick, Georgia neighborhood back in February when he was spotted by 64-year-old Greg McMichael and his 34-year-old son, Travis McMichael. Investigators say the father-son duo pursued Arbery as a cameraman followed because they thought he matched the description of a burglary suspect caught on surveillance. 3 shots are fired in the video, one of them during a struggle with the younger McMichael, before Arbery collapses.
I do believe that Ahmaud was just out for his daily jog. I have believed that since day one. He's been doing this for years.
Thursday, the McMichaels were arrested and charged with murder.
This was an assassination.
A massive protest followed Friday at the Glenn County Courthouse, the crowd calling for justice.
We see clearly in that video that there were 3 shots, 3 shotgun blasts, which goes towards the mindset of the shooter, that his intent was to kill Ahmaud Arbery.
The high-profile case has reached the White House.
My heart goes out to the parents and to the loved ones of the young gentleman. It's a very sad thing.
The head of the GBI saying all of the public attention will not have an impact on the investigation.
It doesn't matter who the person is. It doesn't matter who the victim is. It doesn't matter who potential defendants are. All it matters is what the facts tell us.
One thing that complicated the case and possibly slowed it, conflict of interest. The elder McMichael is a retired investigator with the Glenn County DA's office. And we should mention that today would have been Ahmaud Arbery's 26th birthday. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Thank you, Eric. And joining us now is Justin Gibney, an attorney in Atlanta and the founder of the AND campaign. As just as Eric said, thank you for being with us on what would have been Ahmaud's 26th birthday. You know, the point has been made. The arrests aren't because authorities saw the tape, which had been in their possession for more than 2 months. It's because of the outrage after the public saw the tape. What does this say about the role of Christians speaking out on matters of race and justice? What's the biblical mandate here?
Well, there are a few things in the Bible, John, that are talked about more than justice. And I think we have a clear mandate, if you look through Isaiah, Amos, and so on, to make sure that justice is served, especially when it's dealing with something that's so close to human dignity. You have an individual, as you saw, that video has shaken the nation as it should have. And I truly believe that Christians should be on the front lines when it comes to making sure that justice is served, that Ahmaud Arbery is not forgotten, and that we kind of serve our duty to make sure that everyone is paying attention, because this is one instance, but this is kind of symptomatic of something bigger that's in our society. And I think Christians, again, should be on the front lines in addressing that.
Justin, in the past, incidents like this have really split the church. You'll see black pastors and leaders speak out and then wonder why white churches remain silent. This time, though, we have seen more evangelicals speaking out, leaders like Jensen Franklin, Beth Moore, Christine Caine. Why do you think we're seeing more of them speak up this time in this particular case?
Well, for one, I think there's just a greater consciousness. I think some people are paying a little bit more attention because you have had voices that have really been speaking into this. When we see Dr. Russell Moore speak out about it, these are things that they are conscious about and aware of now. So there's a greater awareness of it. And then we saw the video. I mean, the video was hard to deny. And even when you look at the civil rights movement, it was often videos when they saw people getting attacked by dogs that would make people who were in other parts of the country really pay attention to what was going on. And so videos play a big part of it. But I do think there's a greater consciousness and awareness, and I'm thankful for that.
Justin, beyond the outrage, what about the need for lament? As Christians, what should that grief and lament look like for a mom who this Sunday will have Mother's Day without her son, and for so many others who are angry and hurting? There are other deaths in Indiana just this week. How do we walk through this with our brothers and sisters? What ways can we show them that, practically speaking?
We mourn with the mourning, right? We make sure that we're taking on our brothers and sisters' burdens. When someone else loses a family member, we should feel like we've lost something too. And so I think the number one thing that we can do is just kind of express our lament. Keep talking about this issue, because as I said, this is a greater issue than just this particular instance, and addressing that would be really important. So when we're talking about criminal justice, when we're talking about our criminal justice elections for DAs and judges, make sure that we're holding people accountable and that they know that there's a high standard when it comes to human dignity, because we cannot allow this to continue to happen in our nation.
Yeah. Justin Gibney, founder of the AND campaign. It's great to have you. Thank you for joining us this Friday.
Take care. Thanks for having me.
Coming up, a total reversal in a case against Michael Flynn, and more on our Faith Nation political panel.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torresadillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices and watch God transform a generation.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
In a stunning reversal, the Justice Department has dropped its case against the president's first national security advisor, Michael Flynn.
After reviewing newly disclosed FBI emails and notes, Prosecutors say agents never should have even interviewed Flynn in the Russian collusion investigation and call his contacts with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak entirely appropriate. President Trump has long defended the retired Army general, calling him a casualty of what he described as the Mueller witch hunt. Speaking from the Oval Office today, the president called the efforts to go after Flynn treason.
And here now for our Faith Nation political panel, Julia Manchester, political reporter for The Hill, and CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody. Both of you, good to have you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Well, you know, since day one, President Trump has talked about the deep state and talked about corrupt officials. On Michael Flynn, how much of a boost does this give the president, Julia, from a political perspective?
It definitely gives him a boost from a political perspective. This is something that President Trump has been pushing ever since this really became a story early in his administration. Going to change anything really in terms of who could potentially vote for the president or not. This is going to make conservatives and his supporters happy, but liberals and people on the Democratic side of the aisle say, look, this is just yet another sign of the Justice Department, people under the Justice Department, under William Barr, of trying to undermine any investigation related to the orbit of Donald Trump. So I don't think this changes anything in the long term, but it definitely gives the president something to brag about politically.
David, switching gears here, Tara Reid did her first on-camera interview about her sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden. Your thoughts on that? How effective was she?
Well, I thought she was very effective. You know, Megyn Kelly, obviously a tough interview, and I thought she handled herself very well. I'm talking about Tara Reid. Here's the problem. Where's the media on this? Yeah, we've heard about it. There's no doubt about that. But if you actually kind of do a deep dive on this, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm looking at Politico. I'm going to call these folks out. I mean, look, Politico and Axios and NBC and ABC and CBS. I mean, it's lip service, Jenna, John. It's absolute lip service. It's a story. But that's about it. If it was Donald Trump, it would have been story after story after story. And so there's a much different standard. Everybody's talking about the Me Too movement and some of the hypocrisy there. Let's talk about the media hypocrisy in this. That's a huge interview that Tara Reid did, and scant attention paid to it by most of the major media.
Switching gears here a little bit, Julia, Vice President Mike Pence back out on the road today in Iowa, where he's encouraging churches to start up again, but also telling them to kind of follow the federal government guidelines. This seems to be a very delicate balancing act for the administration.
Yes, absolutely, especially for this administration that relies so much on evangelical support, and especially for an administration that has connected so well with this community. You know, as you and your viewers know, evangelical churches are often big crowded gatherings, and we know that in the age of the coronavirus, gatherings like that aren't necessarily smart or healthy. So this is a way that the administration is trying to really walk this fine line. And I think you're going to see them continue to push, you know, these virtual services, these virtual religious gatherings. However, I know that a lot of people are getting a bit stir crazy being in home all day.
For sure.
Oh, yes, definitely. Well, we wish both of you were here with us in studio, but David and Julia, it's always good to have you, and thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Philosophical Friday. Coming up, the new study that finds God absent from most Christians' view of purpose and success.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
Welcome back. Well, at the core of internationally renowned and celebrated psychiatrist Viktor Frankl's approach to human nature is the search for meaning.
But according to a new study from Arizona Christian University, American Christians do not believe that purpose is to know, love, and serve God. Among the 71% of Americans in the study who consider themselves Christians, fewer than 20% adopt the biblical view that our purpose is to know, love, and serve God. 6 out of every 7 Americans do believe in a universal, shared purpose of human life.
And joining us now for what we could call Philosophical Faith Nation Friday is Dr. George Barna, the Director of Research at Arizona Christian University's Cultural Research Center and author of that study. Dr. Barna, thank you for being with us again. You know, when you talk about meaning and the purpose of life, it can get kind of heady, so let's dive right in. Is there a consensus among Americans on how to define purpose in life?
You know, there really isn't. What we know is that almost 9 out of 10 Americans believe there is some kind of common or universal purpose that all people have. But then when we ask them to describe what that might be, we found that the answers were all over the map. The most prolific answers that we got were people saying that the purpose of life was either about happiness and fulfillment or about reaching their full potential. Between those two perspectives, about 4 out of 10 Americans. When we looked at a more biblical response to that, knowing, loving, and serving God, less than 1 out of every 5 Americans, just 18%, gave that as the ultimate purpose for life.
Yeah. Americans don't agree on the definition of success either. How does that definition change by age group and political affiliation?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. We found again that there were a lot of different perspectives on that. And with each of the generations, the dominant perspective changed. Again, across the nation, there was no majority view on this. What we found is if you took the most biblical perspective, you know, that success is consistent obedience to God. Again, just about 1 out of 5 Americans gave that perspective. But if you look at it by age group, those who are 18 to 29, a plurality of them that said success is all about personal happiness or freedom. Those in the 30 to 49-year-old age group were most likely to say that it's about living a healthy and productive life. When you look at those who are baby boomers, they were most likely to have a split in terms of their generation, saying it was either about living a healthy, productive life or about being a good person or about a consistent obedience to God. The only generation where we found they consistently said it's about consistent obedience was the oldest generation in America today. They're about 30% of them, those who are 70 or older, were saying it's about consistent obedience to God.
Yeah, Dr. Barna, so you wrote that for millions of Americans, obedience to God means a life of, quote, limits, misery, and monotony. But you say that is a misrepresentation. Explain what you mean.
Well, as we've been doing all this research, when we compare the answers of people who have a personal relationship with God, who really invest themselves in that relationship, what we've discovered is that those people say that consistent obedience doesn't impose unfair, unjust, or burdensome limitations on their life, we find that more often than other people, they're likely to say that their life is characterized by feeling more healthy, feeling safer, feeling like they have greater opportunities, feeling a greater sense of joy about their life. And in my mind, it kind of goes back to what we find with young people, where when you put boundaries on their life, they might fight it, they might complain about it, but when we dig a little bit deeper, we find they actually appreciate that, because now they know what's going to help them to find joy and purpose, success, meaning in life. And so, it's the thing to do, to complain about all of that, but they find that it actually works better for them. And adults find exactly the same thing.
Yep. We have to leave it there, but Dr. Barna, it's so interesting, this study, and we appreciate you joining us today. Dr. Barna with Arizona Christian University, thank you.
Thanks.
And we'll be right back.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
Escalating fight.
Jenna Browder.
Chose his words carefully.
Ben Kennedy.
Plan to join him.
And Amber Strong.
Or impeachment grows a little bit louder.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We get out and tell the story of the progress that we're making in this country.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6 on the CBN News Channel.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
And finally tonight, today marks the 75th anniversary of victory in Europe during World War II.
And in observance, the President and First Lady attended a wreath-laying ceremony at the World War II Memorial in Washington. On this day, America still salutes the words written on the Freedom Wall. Here we mark the price of freedom.
Well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.